Welcome to I Am Goddess Collective podcast, a sacred space for empowerment through modern magic, spiritual activism, and reclaiming your power. I am your host, Nixie Marie, feng shui practitioner, earth activist, and mystic, here to support and inspire your journey in becoming the change you wish to see in this world. That change starts within. Join myself and fellow thought leaders, metaphysical experts, and luminaries each week as we explore practical and magical ways to living in your highest alignment. Your journey as an empowered goddess begins here. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful sisters. Well, how are you doing today? I can't even begin to explain to you guys how excited I am that we are near the end of Scorpio season. I don't know about you guys, but this Scorpio season really took it out of me. Like Mercury retrograde, Scorpio shadow season has been so intense beyond what I expected. I just had my last full moon of my 20s too. And shit's just been real intense. I don't know. It's just been intense and I'm just learning to breathe. There's been a lot of really powerful realizations that I get to be more in practice of self-care and mental health and stability as I navigate through all these energies. And I have a hunch that y'all are feeling the same way, because there's this thing called collective consciousness, and that's like you, me, connected as one. So it feels as if that is most likely how you guys are feeling into this season. But nonetheless, don't fear. We are now about to go into Sagittarius season, which is, if I might say so myself, the best season of all time. Only because I am a Sagittarius and we're pretty awesome. And it just is going to bring us a little bit more adventure, freedom, and mystical enchantment, of course. And I hope that it just eases up on all the energies right now, because yep. And so first of all, I wanted to start this show with a card pull from my new deck, the Moon Deck, which is, I'm very excited to announce, our new sponsor for the podcast. So I'm going to pull a deck every episode and connect with this deck. Essentially, this deck is a 44 oracle deck that is women intuition led, with this connection to the moon. And I just love this deck. It felt super aligned to bring on this brand as a sponsor. And I couldn't be more excited to work with them and support this deck grow out into the world as it must, since we all are here to connect with our divine feminine essence. This deck just feels really good. So it's really inspired by the cycles of the moon and emotional well-being. And the Oracle has really reached so many women around the world. And I think it's become a favorite for many Oracle deck collectors like myself. So I'm excited to add this to my deck. And we've got a really beautiful card of the day. Are you guys ready? We haven't done a card pull in a while. So I'm excited that this is going to bring us back to this practice. So the card that I pulled in the Moon Deck is Nourishment. Card number 29, Conscious Eating Nourishes Me. And the way that this deck is meant to be very intentional and like a ritual is the affirmation or the guidance on the deck you are to repeat 3 times. So we're going to say it 3 times. 1, conscious eating nourishes me. 2, conscious eating nourishes me. 3, conscious eating nourishes me. It's perfect because right now we need a lot of nourishment. As I just said, self-care, mental stability, all of those things are actually aligned with conscious eating and using food as medicine. So that's really what this card comes up for us. And that food is, an extension of also Earth's love for us. And we really can't take that stuff for granted, you guys. Like Earth is the medicine, and so is food. So let this card be an invitation for you to check your fridge, check your pantry, and make sure there's some really yummy treats in there for you to be eating that support your mental, physical, and emotional and spiritual well-being. So there's also a ritual in this card book, which I love because obviously I love rituals. So the ritual for this card specifically is inviting you to pause and pray. Take a moment to acknowledge your relationship with food. Do you feel at ease, grace, and delight? Is there any guilt, shame, or control? This is a beautiful awareness to uncover. Consider all the sunlight and moonlight that created your food and breathe in gratitude. So pause and pray in your own way before you eat. You can either visualize energy and allow that energy to go to through your hands and onto your food. And you can say something like Ho'oponopono, which is, I love you, I thank you, I see you, please forgive me, I'm sorry. And just honoring all the elements that came into fruition to deliver everything that's on your plate. And you can also just speak your prayer and say thank you for this bounty and all the love and energy that is in this food. May it nourish me deeply so that I may be a strong, bright light in the world. Thank you. And just, chant Om, say Yum, say thank you, Aho, whatever feels good for you. Use your intuition. That's what this card deck is all about. So moving on now. Thank you, beautiful moon deck, for that beautiful reminder to eat consciously. So a few things that we've got to dive into before we get into this you guys, this podcast episode. I'm just going to say it now. This episode was so much fun to record with Matt and Ash, aka the yoga couple. They really brought in so much wisdom and insight. And I was like, wow, you guys are really fucking smart. And that's why I just kept feeling as I was listening to them. And we haven't had a couple on the podcast ever. So this is our first ever couple chat and couple of the week, or goddess and warrior of the week. So we talk about consciousness, coupling, and really how to vibrationally and intentionally attract your partner into your life. So Matt and Ash share about how they actually brought each other into their lives very intentionally. So I'm excited to dive into that. But before we do, I just wanted to remind you guys there's a few things happening inside the collective. One being, we still have our gratitude challenge going. So if you guys have not yet joined the challenge, there's still time to do so. You can go on over to our Instagram, I Am Goddess Collective Podcast, and click on the link in the bio section, and it'll directly guide you to where you can sign up for the gratitude challenge. With that challenge comes a lot of really amazing giveaways. One of those giveaways is 3 months of free access to the Goddess Life membership, as well as you'll get the moon deck. Oh, funny how that all works. You'll get a moon deck with a paper deck. They have like this amazing wood box as well, but you're just going to get the paper deck. Sorry, guys. But you can get 10% off if you go shop on themoondeck.com/goddess. So, with that, there's a bunch of other prizes, a full year subscription to Yoga Wake Up, amazing cacao blend from Philosophy, Chasing Unicorns, this awesome subscription, like spiritually driven subscription box. You get a full month of that, as well as H2 Life gratitude stickers, and it feels like I'm forgetting someone, but I'm not quite sure. I think that's it. So head on over to our Instagram handle and follow us if you haven't yet. I mean, what are you doing if you haven't followed us? It's pretty awesome over there, if I must say so myself. I take a lot of time in designing and creating the Instagram page and talking to you guys and getting to know you guys. So head on over there. And what else? I think that's maybe it. Oh, yeah. Also, go write a review and tell us how much you love us over here at I Am Goddess Collective Studios. Tell us how much you want more of us. And if you're interested in diving deeper with me and a coven, we have the Goddess Life membership. join in on that fun stuff. We've got a new moon ritual going this month, and this month's theme is gratitude. So in November, we're talking about November here, guys. November is the theme of gratitude, and there's gratitude affirmations, meditations, as well as the herb of the month with Antoinette Yarrow, which is our resident herbalist of Goddess Collective. So very excited for all that. So I hope you guys are having a less of an intense, but maybe if you are, we're on the same page. No, you're not alone. Scorpio season. We're on the brink of it. Only 2 more days, you guys. We got this. If you're on another part of the world, maybe just 1 more day for you when this episode is released. But without further ado, let's get into this amazing, juicy podcast with Matt and Ash, the yoga couple. Enjoy. Hello, beautiful goddesses. Welcome back to another episode of I Am Goddess Collective podcast. I am with an amazing couple. This is actually the second podcast in a row today I've done as a threesome. So not really, but I haven't been doing like the podcast with 2 people, and today it's 2 and 2. So I'm, getting used to the double effects of interviewing. So it's been fun. But so Matt and Ash are actually the yoga couple, and they're here with us today to chat a little bit about some of their work as holistic healers and contemporary teachers of self-realization. Also, they are known being the yoga couple. Their fresh outlook on holistic psychology, yoga philosophy, spirituality, and meditation, and really their overall down-to-earth approach. They live in Hawaii off the Big Island, and they are both authors of The Inner Work, creators of Positive Affirmations to Reprogram Your Subconscious Mind on iTunes. And they also are podcast hosts called The Inner Work Podcast. So welcome to the show, you beautiful beings. How are you today?
Thanks for having us. We are doing amazing.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so excited to be here and fully energized because we knew we were looking forward to this interview today.
Yeah, well, it just dawned on me that you're the first couple to be featured on this podcast. So that is really exciting.
All right, awesome. Cool.
And my cat Dumbledore wanted to come steal the show just now. So he might pop in
I love
and say
that.
Hello. Yes, Harry Potter nerd here. Yeah. Well, you guys, so tell me a little bit about first of all, how did you guys meet?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's an awesome story. Go for it, babe.
This is a really cool story. So I was actually in a relationship and was kind of on the cusp of deciding if this relationship was going to continue or not. And I remember knowing that I wanted to be in a conscious companionship where, the foundation of the relationship was really based in, self-realization, our own inner work. And that was really lacking from the relationship I was in. And I remember sitting down to really get clear on what I really wanted to have in a life companionship. And I wrote it out as if I, was already in it, what it was going to feel like. And I was like, you know what? I'm open. If my relationship evolves into this and my current partner is open to doing this, then I'm all in. And if it means letting this relationship go because something else comes along, I'm also open to that. And I kind of let myself go into that process for a few months. And lo and behold, I was searching on the internet one day and looking for a yoga retreat and randomly came across Matthew's blog. And his blog was all about doing inner work, self-realization, all of these things. And I remember thinking that he was like a really old man and I wanted to go study with him and learn from him. But when I Googled, his name, he ended up being this super attractive, handsome,
25-year-old
my age. Yeah. And I was just so blown away. And I knew in that moment that this was my person. So, I kind of just reached out to him and we started a conversation around, spiritual things. And
some of our first questions to each other were like, what do you think the purpose of life is? And
he let me know he was actually manifesting a companion at that time as well. Mm-hmm. He was doing the exact same process as me, writing down, what he was looking for in a relationship. And it kind of evolved out of that.
And then like a couple weeks later, we basically moved in together and started a brand new life. And it just kind of went really fast because in a lot of ways we were really prepared and consciously looking for it. And on my end, I had written out and really thought about what I wanted the relationship to be like. And then I was kind of consciously manifesting that into my life. And almost, if we're all connected, then I felt like I should be able to speak to her, even though I don't know her yet. And so I was even like at night being like, I love you, good night. And like, I know you can hear me. I know you're out there, you're coming to me. And then lo and behold, like Ashley literally like magically found
him on Google.
So it was really this cool thing of like a testament to how, the universe, like it's all connected. And when you're putting out that energy and you're getting really clear about what it is you want to attract, we literally like are a testament of that we both very consciously drew each other into our lives. And now here we are like 6 years later. And it's just been this beautiful unfoldment.
Wow. Well, congratulations on, it feels as if there's been lifetimes of the inner, like the soul work to find, I don't want to say the one, but it is essentially, because it's like the divine partner, I think, and the soul contract that has been made for you two to find each other. So congratulations. Yeah. Wow. Well, and then so through your journey, you guys have clearly established a foundation from the very beginning of like what kind of relationship you wanted to have, something that was based around spirituality, consciousness, and doing inner work. So when did you guys decide that you were going to become the yoga couple?
I think that, we had this dream as individuals to really spread and share the inner work. In a sense, we didn't know that that's what we were going to call it back then, but we both were kind of already on that path of, I was teaching yoga at that time. He had already written a book and we were both going in that direction. I think we decided, we're stronger together. And for us, our yoga practice is really like a life practice of self-reflection, self-study. When we say we're the yoga couple, we really mean it in the deepest sense of living the practice. And I mean, I don't think we could have come up with a better name, because that's the foundation of everything that our relationship is based on, and us as individuals. So we kind of just combined our efforts and decided to do it together. And it was pretty instant. It was like right after we met.
So you guys have been at it for many years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's always inspiring to see. I think a lot of people, the question I often get, I read tarot and they're always asking like, how can I find my soulmate or my partner, and manifest love into their life. And it sounds like you guys were just consciously setting the intention and most likely doing inner work outside of the meeting of you two to really attract that into your life. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I was going to add to that. For everyone who thinks that is asking that, I would say something we both did was, if you haven't found them yet, that means you have the opportunity to get yourself ready for them. And so more importantly than getting really clear about what you would want or what you want it would feel like, you need to make sure you're an energetic match for that. So if I say I want a companion who's really into her spiritual practice and is meditating and doing, yoga, then I better make sure I'm doing that too. Right. So the kind of the time before you meet them is actually the opportunity to become the energetic match. And so the positive side of that is you can be doing something active. You don't necessarily want to just be sitting around waiting, being like, where are they? I'm ready for you. You also every day can happily take steps to be like, I am getting ready for you, my dear. Like I'm preparing myself to be the person you deserve to have as your companion, because basically everything you want to find in them, you got to make sure you are also,
Yeah. And also willing to kind of release the things that are not in alignment with that. Like me being in a relationship and being on that cusp of, is this actually true for my soul? And it's terrifying because you get really comfortable and in a sense, like complacent in your routine. And me, I think having the willingness to say, I'm willing to let this go if it means that my soul is going to be aligned for that, which is actually true for me. I had to consciously say, yes, I'm willing to let all of this go. And I think that attunement in my own soul and mind is what, opened up that doorway for me to even come across Matthew.
Yeah. And I guess I had to be willing to go wherever I needed to go too, because I left my whole life and moved to be with Ashley.
Yeah.
Devotion to the self. But it sounds like you guys are really on that path. And, before that though, before you guys became a unit, what was your, journey like individually to really find yourself on this spiritual path?
Want to do yours first?
Yeah, for me, I grew up in a really kind of unstable environment. My mom was a drug addict most of my life, and my dad kind of an alcoholic. And there was a lot of chaos around me from the very beginning, and I could just sense that there was, more to this life than maybe what I was experiencing.
And you were in Vegas too, to kind of give context.
Oh wow, yeah.
I was in Vegas, and it really set me on a search. Like all around me was just like chaos, and there was a lot of contrast of, darkness and light in Vegas. Like you can really
It's
see
palpable
it
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really got me curious at a young age. I started investigating, spirituality and religion and, what's the point of all of this, from a really young age. And I think that that's what really sent me on this spiritual path, around 16, 17 years old was seeing the struggle that my parents were going through and them not having the tools to get themselves out of the cycle of toxicity, and me just being like, there's gotta be a different life than this. And I mean, I ended up studying Asian philosophy in college and learning all about Hinduism and Buddhism and all these different cultures and philosophies that are pathways to, a healthy spirit, a healthy mind. And I think it really motivated me. And just to wrap the story up full circle, I think it really motivated my parents, because to get myself out of the life that they were in, they really could witness the happiness and joy and the different direction I went. My mom ended up getting sober, after being addicted her entire life. Around when I was around 25 years old, she decided she wanted to get clean and learn yoga and go raw vegan. And I think it really impacted my family as well to kind of go in this different direction.
Wow.
Yeah. I think too, it's really cool that Ashley, through her yoga practice, it rippled into other people's lives and really saved them in so many ways. And so that was really cool, I think, for her to kind of get to share that. And I feel like, she's being modest, but she's so passionate about her practice and has been sharing it with so many people now. And it's like this beautiful thing to witness, because it really is like her gift. But anyway, I just love her. Okay, so
acknowledgement.
For my story is very like it's different in that it's the very like Western approach, and I my whole life wanted to be a doctor, and I was getting to the point of I graduated high school really early because I knew I had this super long path ahead of me. So I started college at 15 and got my bachelor's in psychology around 19, and then worked in inpatient psychiatry because I was a little young still to go to medical school in a lot of ways. And so I worked in inpatient psychiatry for a year, and that really kind of shaped a lot about my understanding of the mind, working with some of the most intensely altered minds, shall we say. And so that was really influential on me. And during that time, I found naturopathic medicine, because the MD and NDO approaches, which are the traditional paths of medicine, didn't really feel right for me, even though my whole life I'd really been preparing for that. And something wasn't sitting right with me because I was exposed to yoga and different things at that time, but all the things I'd learned about the mind had really started to make me curious about mind-body medicine and going deeper. Things like the placebo effect were really fascinating to me. The idea that you can give a patient something that is completely inactive and has no medical effect, and yet their mere belief in it can cause healing. Yeah. Stuff like that was like really mind-blowing to me. So I found naturopathic medicine, went to school, medical school, and very quickly was just blown away by the depth of holistic healing knowledge there is out there. And more importantly, the people I met in medical school really changed my path forever, because coming from a very Christian background, my best friends that I immediately gravitated towards was a Hindu, a former like Buddhist monk, and another one was a really devout yogi who like took trips to India often. And so suddenly I had exposure to like all these other paths, and obviously in naturopathic medical school, everyone there, like all my colleagues, had these really beautiful stories, and they came from all over the world, and they had all these healing stories of how the conventional system failed them, but naturopathic medicine saved them. And so that exposure really set me off on this path of finding the real cause of ailments, but more importantly for me, it was human suffering. And in holistic healing, the number one rule is you treat the cause, not the symptom. And so that concept sunk into my mind and made me want to keep following that further. And so then I had this big realization with a friend, one of those friends, and we both left school because I wanted to study more of the mind. And the fact that it was really like that placebo effect that fascinated me, and I wanted to study it more. So I left and eventually went on to become a therapist and started a master's program to become a therapist, but then kind of had similar issues again of, I was like, okay, so I can give you everything you need to have a healthy body, but if you don't have a healthy mind, it's not going to matter because it'll keep creating ailments. Okay, so let's help people heal their minds. But then once I got into the therapy program, I realized, well, if you don't have a healthy spiritual context, then people will still be depressed. They'll still have issues because they'll be like, what's the point of life? Mm-hmm. So then that really, again, I was like, okay, what's the original cause? Keep going back to the cause. And what it all came back to for me was spiritual healing and spiritual well-being. And so it's kind of like a tier system of body last, mind, and then spirit first. And so that's when I left all of it and really dove in and found my teacher and really focused on consciousness and how to bridge the gap of the East and the West. And that's when I found yoga and Hinduism and Buddhism and all of that. I really dove into spiritual study. And that's kind of like the foundation of the inner work in a lot of ways, is Ashley and I being the epitome of like the East and the West, kind of meeting and, creating a bridge for people.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. And it's always often beautiful, like hearing the evolution of once you have a little taste of truth in some way, how it leads you to a whole different trajectory on what your mind thinks that you're supposed to do, like become a doctor or, anything that we think we're supposed to be. When we get broken down by all these barriers, of truth, it takes us on a wild ride. So
yes, it does.
Yeah. Well, now seems like the perfect opportunity to share with you goddesses our newest sponsor, the Moon Deck. The Moon Deck is a beautiful oracle set that connects you to your intuition and brings self-care rituals into your daily life. Created to foster community and healing, this entire set of 44 cards plus a beautiful guidebook filled with rituals is inspired by the cycles of the moon and the empowerment of women. It shares insights on growth, purpose, practice, and emotional well-being. The Moon Deck can be worked with as an oracle guide, as a daily tool for reflection and meditation, or simply in a tarot-inspired spread. As a goddess listener, you receive 10% off the entire site. So head on over to themoondeck.com/goddess and enter code goddessmoon to receive your discount. Happy rituals and oracle card pulling, sisters. I love you. How do you guys really maintain your inner work or your rituals or practices while being in a relationship?
I think for us, our relationship is the inner work and the practice, because in a sense, we're constantly mirroring to each other our own shadows. Like Matt is always revealing to me where I still have unhealed childhood wounds or unmet needs from my little girl, and I'm doing the same for him on a constant basis, just in our day-to-day life. So it's actually like this perfect simulation for us to do our individual inner work, because being in relationship, we feel is like kind of like a fast track to awakening, because if you're open to it in a sense, because we're expecting that we're going to bring those things up for each other. That's kind of the purpose of being in relationship, is to see the self in the other. So
yeah, for us, I think our practice is the relationship. And Carl Jung has a really cool quote he says, everything that irritates us about other people is revealing of ourselves. And so just to clarify, like what Ash means about how we help and reflect to each other. It's not even that we even say anything. It's by what triggers us, what behavior that Ashley does or I do causes something to bubble up to the surface, whether it be anger, frustration, anxiety, something not peace, right? So the irony is it's not that it's not like we say, hey, you're doing something that is unhealed. It's just literally whenever we find ourselves getting triggered by something, that is actually the opportunity to heal. And so for us, it's kind of like 24/7. It's just a constant experience, because anytime one of us falls from peace, we're trying to build dialogue around that and become aware of it. Because, for us, it's just like, it's a lifestyle approach of constantly healing. And we believe, and this is kind of the foundation of our book, The Inner Work, is we believe that the true miracles are in everyday mundane moments. Like healing is in every moment. It's not some grandiose thing. You get a treatment, or you go somewhere, or you go have an experience. It's literally in like sitting in traffic, or when your partner does something that annoys you. Like it's everyday moments. Those are the opportunities to have a transcendent experience. And it's just a matter of, can you stay aware and open enough to seeing that you don't need anything special. It's right now, it's just everyday experiences where if you're not in peace, can we look at that and dive into it and use this as an opportunity for some sort of healing?
Yeah. That kind of leads me to, you mentioned your book, The Inner Work, and you guys both wrote this together. Tell us a little bit about the book and what's inside, and really ultimately what your message is for the readers.
So the inner work is really, it's an invitation for anybody who's yearning for that happiness that they know that they're deserving of, and that freedom that they know that they're deserving of. And rather than focusing on obtaining it through any type of external accolades or achievements or a sense of doing, it's really going back in to the self and looking at all of that, looking at all the irritations, looking at all of the withholding that we do to ourselves from love. Like we're, in a sense, the only ones withholding that happiness. We're the only ones withholding that love, withholding that joy. And I think what's really unique about it is we take you kind of on this hero's journey through the themes of consciousness, is what we call them. And they're really just like levels of accepting or withholding love. So kind of like at the at the very like lowest sense, we can be in shame where we're rejecting ourselves. And then in the highest sense, we can be in unconditional love.
We're in like full acceptance.
Yeah. And we kind of take you on a journey through each level of consciousness that you can get stuck in, because they're all very unique. Somebody who's in pride has different inner work than somebody who's in shame. Someone in shame isn't even able to feel that pride for themselves, you know, to be.
Yeah, it's actually a complete self-loathing. So
it's
completely
and
different.
So each level of consciousness, the reader gets to really connect with and be like, you know, do I have any remnants of shame in myself? Do I have any remnants of guilt? Do I have any remnants of grief? Do I have any remnants of anger or pride? And then each one of those themes of consciousness has a very unique healing per that theme, because to ask somebody to just jump to unconditional love, just to be forgiving, just to be hopeful, just to have that, you know, unconditional love, it's really overwhelming and can push someone backwards.
Yeah, it can actually be they say in the yoga tradition, the reason why the gurus would have, it'd be one-on-one advice is because the next spiritual step is very relative to the student.
To where you are now.
And they say that some information given at the wrong stage of someone's spiritual evolution can actually be damaging.
Right. And what I found is what I really love about it is things that we've kind of disassociated with in a sense and said we should, quote unquote, or should not do in our spiritual path. Like you should just never get angry. You should just never blame other people. It's an evolution, because for somebody who is in shame, and they've been maybe molested or raped, it's actually really healthy for them to take that step of giving that shame back and not carrying it and thinking it's their fault.
Yeah, and maybe getting angry is actually a very important, healing, healthy step for them.
And the point is to just not get stuck, to keep moving through each. It's almost like the 12 steps, to keep moving through each one and to not deny any part of the work, of the work, just not to deny any part of it.
Yeah, so something that's really unique from, my own journey of watching the healing process is that in the book, we really want to make sure and let everyone know that you are perfect where you are. And everything we've come across in the self-help community is, in my opinion, it's often very broad. And we really created a very specific, step-by-step guide where, just like Ash is saying, the healing process is relative. It's relative to where you are. And you really need to know that it's okay to be in the step you are in. And sometimes we can get really down on ourselves because, just like Ash was saying, we might be like, man, I'm supposed to always be patient, or I'm supposed to always be kind, but like, I do not feel that way right now. And so then we beat ourselves up, and then we're like, I like feel like crap because I'm supposed to be like this loving, meditative Zen person. But it's time and place, in another way of putting it. There's a time and place for every stage of the healing process. And that's really what the inner work gives you, is it's an allowance to be where you are and to honor where you are, because every step is necessary. Every step is important. And it's okay to be where you are. And so that's kind of really the hero's journey is, it's all part of it.
Yeah. Well, I personally love a good scream fest in the pillow every now and then. So
yeah, sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah. And I think it's coming to that level of acceptance of knowing it's okay to have the emotion of whatever we're currently experiencing, because ultimately, we're here to have a human experience, not really if we're aliens living on the, it's just whatever we are, we're here to be human. And there's many tools, I think emotions being one of them, to experience that level of dynamic force of energy that can come through us. And one thing that you noted too was like in the spiritual communities, it being something that seems a little outside of ourselves, but to your point of bringing it to the ground and having it be relatable is why, this type of conversation, this type of work, and also being in like a conscious relationship is so imperative to be an example of, showing people the way in a non, relatable concept. So they're not really understanding that this is like okay to feel what they're feeling. So yeah, you guys definitely feel super inspired by your work and what you share about. How do you guys, in each of your own individual words, like how do you define a conscious relationship or conscious coupling?
I think it's that individual commitment to doing your inner work while in relationship. So it's like, I know that that's my commitment, is that I'm always going to continue to look at myself and not project my problems onto Matthew. And I think that for me, it's that agreement.
Yeah, I would say very similarly, I'm just kind of reflecting on that question and thinking, how do I do that? I think the biggest thing is I promised Ashley that I will always look at myself. So I think it's maybe another way of putting it is an agreement to always take accountability for how are you contributing to this.
And I want to add to that because I've experienced that kind of getting taken so far to the extreme that it's lacking love and compassion. And in yoga, we always say like it's this balance of equal parts effort and equal parts unattachment. And you have to find that balance, because if you swing too far to the one end of the pendulum, it's kind of lacking the truth. And in this sense, I think it's equal parts accountability and equal parts love and compassion.
And grace.
Yeah. Because if it's just, accountability, it can easily get twisted to always being like, I'm not willing to yeah, like, that's yours. Like, never working and processing on it together. And I think what's really unique about this journey that me and Matt are, this experiment that we're kind of in together, is that we've kind of in an opposite done something really different here, because while it is our own inner work, and while each of us needs to be accountable to looking within, it's my gift to him to want to help him heal his inner child. I know it's not my responsibility to heal his wounds, but I love him so much that I'm willing to acknowledge his unmet needs of his inner child, to address his wounds, and to be conscious and aware and compassionate and kind in those areas, because I love him that much. It's my gift to him. And him to do the same for me. And it's not an expectation. It's not his responsibility to cater to my wounds, but the fact that he wants to have compassion for those, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe like a last way to put it is like, it's a conscious agreement to help each other reach each other's full potential. And the furthest that would be is to help each other become enlightened, and in the yoga traditions, many of our favorite teachers say that the goal of the true yoga of a relationship is to be spiritual companions and help each other become enlightened.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I'm just going to sit in that one. It becomes like so outside of the structures of what modern society has placed on us, of what a model of like relationships should look like, especially growing up. You talked about a lot of the childhood wounds, trauma, like all these things that we've experienced, and created this ultimate viewpoint of how we're supposed to have these relationships that are built on, jealousy, greed, insecurity, competition, you name it. I mean, it's all those things that kind of separate us versus bringing us into unity consciousness. So, the work that you guys are doing is really powerful. Thank you so much. And at the same time, though, I think we also have challenges even in conscious relationships. What are some stuff like that you guys go through that come up as challenging, or, you struggle with or contemplate, that are within your relationship that you guys learn from?
So many.
Gosh, it's kind of a funny thing to say, because I'm like, I don't want to dissuade anybody from going down this path, but in a sense, we've chosen a path that's more difficult, but brings more joy.
Yeah, it's kind of like ignorance is bliss, but it also is stagnant. So we could turn a blind eye to everything and just live with our heads in the sand and probably have a really easy going relationship.
Yeah.
But there would be no growth. And so the irony is this is uncomfortable at times because you are actually stretching to grow.
And because we're in this agreement, it's not like we just let things go off the radar. Like, we're really aware of each other's triggers.
If it's
really
not
aware.
loving, like, it needs to be addressed.
We're constantly addressing it. So in a lot of ways, like, it's very challenging partnership. And I think that it's good for people to see, because the world kind of paints this picture of like, if things aren't easy, you should run away from them and do the path of
Maybe
least
you're
resistance.
with the wrong person. Yeah.
But it's like that whole thing about like, a tree is only strong because of the resistance of the wind, you know? And we have so much resistance coming up in our relationship on a day-to-day basis. Like, from an outsider's perspective, people might be like, wow, your relationship is really hard. Like, really hard. You guys are constantly working through stuff.
Yeah.
But in a sense, we're liberating ourselves from those things that we were just unaware of until we were with each other. And so it's daily. and
I would say too that it actually, though, the silver lining is I love and am so utterly devoted to Ashley because she is willing to do that work with me. So the silver lining is it actually brings you ridiculously close, because Ashley knows every single one of my shadows. And that is very powerful to be seen so intensely. And I think the reason why I mentioned earlier it's uncomfortable is because that's really humbling. It's really humbling to have all your masks removed. And so the as much as we're kind of just being honest that, yes, like, we will never portray that we are like some enlightened, perfect couple. We go through so much petty stuff every day. But we are, what I will say with a lot of confidence is we are the most ridiculously connected couple because we do that. And so there is no one I'm like ever more vulnerable and so insanely connected to than my wife, because she knows everything. And that is the beautiful silver lining behind doing conscious work as a couple, is the level of vulnerability and connection you get to have is so unparalleled. It's just, there is nothing anything like it. There's nothing like it.
And on a more practical level, because you asked what kind of things are we going through? I mean, we run the gamut between, getting triggered by finances, and then we're diving into what type of beliefs do we have about being provided for by the creator, because ultimately it's a deep sense of insecurity that we're not going to be taken care of, to, our sexual repressions, to
making mistakes, like
perfectionism.
We each have our themes of consciousness that we have unhealed wounds in. So like I have a lot of unhealed, like my inner work. Some of the themes of consciousness that I struggle with is anger and impatience,
and guilt.
And then guilt and judgment, because of my upbringing, those themes of consciousness I still have a lot of healing around. And Ashley's tend to be more around fear,
like fear
and
of
having anxiety,
fear that I'm going to get hurt, all that fear. Because I had parents who I didn't feel like could show up for me in that way, because they were in their own thing. So that comes up for me all the time, just so much fear.
So that's the beauty of relationships is your themes of consciousness that you're working on. Some might be similar, but like with Ash and I, ours are very different. And so it's kind of fun to help each other through them, because here's the cool part. Like I don't have I'm very healed in the area of fear. So I get to offer that to her. And likewise, Ashley's like, she has no shame or guilt. Like that doesn't even really resonate with her. So she really helps me learn like, whoa, man, why are you judging yourself? Because she wasn't raised the way I was raised in terms of dealing with judgment. So that's like not even a big deal for her. So that's the beautiful part of a conscious relationship, is you get to offer each other what you have healed and you feel really confident in, whereas your partner might really still be struggling with it. So that's the beautiful give and take.
And what I have seen myself do in the past, before being in this agreement with Matt, before being in this conscious companionship, is that in the past, those opposing themes of consciousness would often trigger each partner to be like, you should be where I am. Why don't you know this already? Come on, get it together.
Totally.
Why are you afraid? Like, why your limitations are a burden to me. Whereas the new agreement is your limitations are opportunities for me to show up for you. Yeah.
And that was definitely something we had to figure out, because it's natural for humans. As humans, we project. And so we project that you should know what I know and you should be where I am. And we do this subconsciously. That's why we get frustrated at people in public and in society. Because we're like, you should know better, but we take for granted that none of us know
what
each other's knowledge. Like, we all have different life experiences. And so that tendency of us to all subconsciously project is an illusion, because none of us know what each other know. And so that's why, like Buddha says, let everyone be your teacher. It's because it's the truth. Everyone is your teacher in some way, shape, or form, because everyone has a different experience from you and therefore has something to offer.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with the fear one, the fear of abandonment, and how that shows up in my relationship now, and how I was doing work on this actually this morning, and I was connecting with my higher self in a meditation, which I haven't done in a while because I sort of let my spiritual practice go by being a business owner and taking on more masculine roles. So I'm kind of at this place where I'm reshifting back, and it's so synchronistic you brought that up, because what I found through this meditation was my higher self guided me through this visualization of me back riding motocross with my father. And we had this conversation, which might break me out in tears again, but just to really look at him in the eye and his spirit. He's still with me and here on this planet, but not as, present. And that's what the fear of abandonment really is. So I think it's a really powerful tool for anybody that's going through those fears or loss or anything, that you can connect to the spirit of and the essence of the being that you've experienced this loss with. And it helps with the fear, because you kind of take your power back a little bit, and you can talk to them and tell them, how you feel without it being a heated discussion in the physical world. So
I love that.
Yeah, it was really powerful.
I love that. Just you're connecting with their highest self in a sense out of the physical plane, and still going through the processing that you are not doing on the physical plane, but the work is still getting done. I love that.
Yeah. And to just have my geeky add into that is scientifically that is accurate, because we are all connected. So you can visualize and see it in your mind's eye, and it is real. Quantum physics, we're all connected. So as you have that experience, you are actually doing legitimate healing. So I would just affirm that and be like, yeah, you're right. That's amazing practice, because you are actually having legitimate shift because of doing that. So it is worthwhile for everyone listening. That's an amazing practice for sure.
Yeah, I feel the shift. And I think that's the most important part, is when you feel it and you can walk out of the visualization or the knowingness that something got done, and it often doesn't always look like we think it's going to, for me, I always thought it was going to be a really crazy conversation between him and I, me crying my eyes out in front of him, and it might someday look that way. But, I think that's where the couple dynamic really, if I hadn't chosen this partner now, he wouldn't pull that out of me, that he triggers that in me like crazy. I mean, with the stories of everything that I experience and the wounds and the shadow. So, for all you listeners that are in that fire or in that knowingness that your partner, at Matt Nash here, are mere reflections of each other versus projecting everything off of each other. I think that's where the really deep healing work begins. Yeah. And you guys also, on a whole nother note, we'll switch gears here a little bit from still in alignment with healing, but you guys are creating a course on healing the pornography in couples or in individuals. I want to hear about that, because that's something I've never heard of before.
Yeah. So it kind of goes right along with relationships and all this conscious work we're talking about is, so to just start with my own experience, really the passion behind it is that I started looking at pornography when I was a teenager, and it turned into a addiction, or rather habit, if nothing else, that lasted for like 14 years. And it wasn't until, I got married that I started to realize that this had serious impacts on my mental health and stability, and my ability to be in a committed, truly committed relationship. Because I was noticing that the climax of why this came to our knowledge is because it actually made me want to divorce Ashley within that like first year of being together, because I had been looking at porn the couple of days leading up to this moment, and after a couple of days, I finally was like, I don't want to be married anymore. Mm-hmm. And so then we really started going backwards, and long story short, dissected to see how pornography had this direct effect in making me not want to be in a relationship. And it really caused endless issues in our relationship. And so then we really got, scientific with this and started noticing and diving into the research of what this does to relationships. And to us, we really call it a hidden epidemic, because it's now estimated that 9 out of 10 men look at pornography, and 3 out of 10 women look at pornography. One major site alone has 90 million viewers a day. And the age that people start looking at it is 8 to 11 now. Yeah. It's absurd. Yeah. So the brain is not equipped to be handling this. And the biggest thing that we've realized, and especially with my like medical background, is that pornography is a drug. Absolutely. It's a drug. It's a chemical experience. And we are all just thinking it's a sexual one, and it is not. And that's why we really think this is a hidden epidemic, because we basically have a bunch of people addicted to heroin, and we're thinking it's normal and that it's like something that's not going to have negative effects.
And the reason why we're saying it's a drug is because what research is finding is that when a viewer looks at pornography and then couples it with like having an orgasm or masturbating, they're releasing a lot of neurotransmitters and chemicals in their body. And what ends up happening is, because they're looking at so many people over and over again, and then coupling it with that act of orgasm, it's really stapling in a neuron connection in the brain that gets accustomed to high amounts of dopamine release, high amounts of endorphins and serotonin and adrenaline. And just like you get addicted to a drug, the body just becomes addicted to these high amounts of chemical releases. Yeah. And it downregulates then in normal life. So when somebody who looks at porn periodically returns to their normal life, they're not correlating necessarily that there's a connection, because they're not really aware that this chemical reaction is even happening. But then life starts to become dull. Their partner becomes kind of a burden and boring. It's really hard to get stimulated by day-to-day life in a way that's euphoric, because it doesn't release that same amount of chemicals anymore. Mm-hmm. It feels like null and dull in comparison.
And very irritable.
So the user can become easily irritable, frustrated. You start to see all the same symptoms of somebody who uses any other type of drug. Yeah. And what we're blown away by is that this is just like not a talked about thing. And in a lot of ways, it's even, it's accepted in our society. Like, it's just normal. And because of all the sexual repression, which is a totally different subject, but because of the sexual repression that so many people have experienced, they're going to pornography as a rebellion, which we totally agree that our sexuality should not be repressed, but we're just saying that pornography might not be the answer to handling and healing that repression, because it has so many negative side effects that are affecting our relationship, our day-to-day life, our psyche, and in our soul in so many ways.
Yeah. And so for us, we really started to pay attention to the side effects. And, again, I use myself as an example all the time, and in no way, shape, or form casting any sort of judgment, because I did it too. I think more importantly is that I realized that we just didn't know any better. And, here I was at 15, I had no idea. And I think what happens is there's just no education about the actual biological effects. And I will always speak to people very scientifically about this. I was told spiritually, no, it's wrong, it's sinful, all that stuff. like most of us who were repressed sexually by a religion, that doesn't work. And in fact, it causes more lashing out and acting out. So I will always just be very straight and scientific with you that yes, your sexuality is beautiful and healthy, but pornography is something very different. And thinking that they're the same is something that is very damaging. And I was just going to say one more thing about it is another reason why this came up for us is because when we started working with couples, a lot of the relationship issues we noticed all were connected back to someone in the relationship or both people were looking at pornography. And most people are always like, whoa, I didn't realize they were connected. So a lot of the behaviors and a lot of the issues in the relationship actually all stemmed back to this one behavior.
So the course that we created is really like it's a couple's healing to heal all of the sexual repression that first initiated porn use. It's to really
all the various reasons. We go through all the holistic reasons for why someone might be using pornography, because it's not just repression.
Sure.
That's just a really big one.
And we go into a lot of shadow work around the triggers from, me being the partner and having to know that, my husband was dealing with this issue and what it brought up for me, all the insecurity. It's a lot of shadow work for the partner. It's a lot of shadow work for the user. It's reopening the dialogue. It's healing intimacy in a very sacred way. And it's kind of undoing this epidemic that is happening to like 9 out of 10 men. So it's a really different and unique topic, but it's kind of crazy because a lot of us are dealing with this. We're just not talking about it.
Yeah. And I think that the kind of the fun invite is pornography use is a symptom of something deeper.
Yeah.
And that's really the root of our course, being holistic healers that we are. It's a very comprehensive holistic guide to really diving into what is this really about? And it's always coming from some unhealed wound that we want to help people access and finally heal so that they don't have to use a destructive substance. Stop self-medicating something that hurts you, and let's talk about the real thing and heal it so that you can enjoy a life of freedom and joy and an intimacy that is real and not a screen. Like let's enjoy a healthy, beautiful, powerful intimacy instead.
Yeah. The first, I think, thing that comes up is the communication around it, for somebody who might be super called to this and maybe listening now and knows that either they're struggling with this in their relationship or themselves. What comes up for me first is how to have that conversation, how to actually approach your partner or even yourself and admit, that it's an issue or that it's just something to look at.
Yeah, I think the first biggest thing is begin with awareness. It all just comes down to awareness and having compassion. So throughout the whole course, we reiterate that the only energy that's capable of healing is unconditional love and compassion. And so we, in the course, even go through how to help you get to that point. And instead of casting judgment or instead of being like, hey, this is bad for you, and really just approach it in a way that is healthy and will bring actual healing.
Yeah. And I think that the biggest thing is that if it is your partner and without the information about it kind of being a chemical addiction more so than a commitment issue, we can take it on as it being personal. Like maybe it has something to do with being like, why am I not good enough? Why is the relationship not good enough? And when that energy is kind of projected, it kind of spirals into defensiveness and all these things, because at the end of the day, that's not really what it's about, because Matt did love me. He did want to be committed to me. He did want to have a healthy relationship, and us realizing that it had nothing to do with that. And it was kind of this neutral thing.
Yeah. It's very
helped us have a dialogue that wasn't so triggered anymore.
Yeah. And it really just comes down to education. And just like you would learn any other thing in science, like you don't really have a charge about it. It's just like information. Yeah. And so, I don't know about you, but if you learn if you learn how your stomach works or your brain works, you're just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, if you approach porn with the same neutrality, it's very effective. So for me, what helped is to just literally look at the science and be like, wow, my brain is becoming desensitized and is therefore affecting my mental stability. And that's just it's just very neutral. It's just scientific facts that you can really just start to think about. And then why I was saying awareness is then become aware. Become aware if you use it or your partner uses it. I would say start with noticing, how do you behave immediately after? How do you behave a couple hours after? How do you behave the next day, the next week?
How do you feel?
How do you feel? Because what you'll notice is if you're honest with yourself, there's always a come down. There's always a negative, you reach a euphoric, unrealistic high, but then with any drug use, you hit a low. And so I would just say start with compassionate, neutral awareness, and just start to become aware. And really you have to come to the conclusion yourself. And that's really what's going to help it stick, is it has to be authentic.
I do want to say we actually built the course for partners more so than the person using it. Kind of like the partner starts the course and brings their partner into it, because in a sense, the person using might not be ready to hear all of this, but the person on the other end of it is like, I know that this is all hitting home for me. I'm seeing all these side effects. I don't know what to do. And in the course, we actually help the partner heal all of the triggers so that you can have that conversation without being charged. That's really how we built it.
We really help you get to the point. We actually even talk about how to have the conversation. So like we really help you, the partner, like learn everything you need to know and then how to approach it effectively.
Wow. So cool. Well, you guys are definitely a great mirror for this work. I've, like I said, never heard of anybody doing something like this, but, just honoring the fact that you're willing to show up and be vulnerable and, face so many moments of like being so split open and revealing the shadow side, I think is just, it's such a band of honor. And to me, that's really what the path to enlightenment is. It's like being humble and being in full reverence to this entity, this divine, this higher power that, we're here to experience. So you guys are awesome.
We have a saying in pretty much all the work we do is that whether it's a retreat or a call or the courses, whatever experience we have, our foundation of everything we've created is by courageously honoring and admitting our vulnerabilities, we're on our way to healing them. And so we always model that first in everything we do is we will model and show you all of our shadows to kind of be vulnerable first and say, hey, it's okay. Because in fact, as we become vulnerable, that's how we heal. And so we really believe in the power of demonstrating that. And that's why like the whole course, I'm like, hey, like I did this too. So that's really what it's all about is when we are all willing to be open and vulnerable and drop our guards, that's when we all are finally open to reaching our full potential and healing. It's a positive thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing so much of your wisdom and inspiration. I know that this is going to hit home for a lot of people. Thank you for being the first couple on the show.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure and we're so grateful.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing episode with Matt and Ash, the yoga couple. Where can everybody find you?
The easiest place on social media is to just look up the yoga couple. We're kind of that across the board, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Even our website. It's just the yoga couple.
And then the website is theyogacouple.com and you can find the course and clarity calls with us, our retreats, everything is there at theyogacouple.com.
All right. Well, awesome. Thanks again, guys, for coming on. And I usually ask this question at the end of the show to all the ladies, but I'm actually going to ask it to you both because I think every man has an inner goddess. But how do you invoke your inner goddess?
I think I evoke my inner goddess when I connect with Earth. When I go into nature, that's when I remember her and embody her the most.
Yeah, I would say I evoke her through my gratitude and through my receptivity in me, to be receptive. And I think as well, nature is where it evokes a lot of gratitude, and especially surfing for me. Being in the ocean, I always pray before I go in the ocean and honor that I'm going into the womb.
Yeah.
I'm really going into the womb and to honor that. I think that's a big one for me.
Yeah, well, super powerful to always hear from the masculine what they have to say. So thank you guys again. I love you all so much. I hear you. I see you. Bye for now, sisters. Until next time.